run right to the end. People come on, you don't need to be scared. Cause you're gonna love again.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Haider Rifaat Show Season 10. Today I'm very thrilled to be joined by Meher Jaffri. She wears many hats. Apart from being an actress, she's a producer, a director, screenwriter, and has extensive experience in film and theater. Today I will learn more about her story, her path to victory, and the renewed success she has witnessed with the drama Meri Zindagi Hai Tu. Thank you so much for joining me, Meher, for this interview. I would like to first ask you from a personal introspection, do you personally feel like you're more of an actor, director, or a producer? Out of all these roles, which one do you resonate with the most?
I started out by acting तो मैंने बहुत थिएटर की एक्टिंग की बचपन से and I think I kept while I studied business in my bachelor's degree, but while I was doing that degree outside of college, after college, I still kept acting. I guess when I got my not first but second job that was not related to the film industry, मैं फिर भी मैंने एक दो प्रोफेशनल प्रोडक्शंस किए थे even when I moved to Pakistan back to Pakistan. So Alhamra में Arts Council में professional productions as an actor I kept doing. Direction, I remember when I graduated from high school, I remember writing in this sort of like creative arts acting diary that I had, that I want to do work behind the camera too, because direction is something where you have creative control. It's a different, related, but different skill set than acting. You to bring together a story, to bring together the production elements, the sound, the music, the acting. Is a different type of experience and satisfaction than acting. So I think acting and directing is has been my main sort of focus and interest. Producing, but interestingly, in the film industry, my first professional foray into the film industry was producing a film, not acting in it and not directing it. Directing, I didn't feel like I had the technical skills then to direct a proper feature film, a full feature film. And so, but I had always been acting in theater before
Okay,
that.
so Meher, you're also the founder of Bodhi Works, which is a production venture that has produced some critically acclaimed work, some independent films, including A Wedding, Seedlings, The Waves, and Funny Boy. And the list goes on. There's a lot of theater work that's also involved. So I will quote you here because I think this was very interesting. Quote, at Bodhi Works, we aim to use film and theater as provocation to inspire thought, dialogue, and action on ideas and issues that excite and confront humanity, and to give a platform to and incubate Pakistan's finest performing arts and film talent and stories from the region with a mission to foster inclusion and diversity. Now, that is the vision that I personally see for Pakistani television and cinema in terms of the kind of content that we're creating for the audience. So, have you ever felt that your vision sometimes has not aligned with commercialized cinema or television content that is being produced currently? And that is actually now the system that we're living with. And also, before you answer that, what is the whole idea behind Bodhi Works, if you can also elaborate on that?
So Bodhi Works, the full name of the production company used to be Bodhisita Works. It's and it was coined by my former partner in my film production company, who has since moved away. But it's a Sanskrit word that means to generate love and kindness. He was a Buddhist actually, and I mean, it's just a philosophy that is obviously all pervasive in humanity. And so the name stuck. Now it's shortened to Bodhi Works. It's been up and running since 2010. We produced our first film that released in 2012 called Seedlings, Urdu mein Lamha naam tha. And since then have produced a lot of work, like you said. Um, and in terms of like, I guess what your question was about the dichotomy between what independent work and commercial work and how it's compromised, or
Yeah, like
what?
your vision as a producer, someone who's coming in with a fresh perspective, bringing in these ideas that do not seemingly align with the commercialization aspect of our television and film industry. So
Yeah.
you see that disconnect between independent cinema, independent productions that do not sell because there's no commercial value, because people actually think, and I've had these conversations with producers as well, who also think people don't want to see that content. People don't want to see such storylines that are very independent, that are like non-commercial. But actually, that is also not true. So I wanted your take as an independent filmmaker. When you make these films, at least they strike a chord with the audience. They can really resonate with those stories, although they might be really heart-wrenching to watch sometimes. But that's the power of cinema and television, correct? So are we not following that path?
Oh, that's like I could tell you so many stories about this one, but I will say that शुरू शुरू में जब हमने शुरू किया था बोधी वर्क्स और हम ये फिल्म बना रहे थे सीडलिंग्स लम्हा and in fact another film that we were working on was a much bigger sort of like sci-fi, more commercial in the I'd rather say more mainstream in terms of what's thought of as commercial. And because the budget of that was really big and we were nobodies then, हमने कहा यार ये script हम दूसरी फिल्म के लिए छोड़ते हैं अभी, like let's do a smaller script. And so the partner in my company at the time, Summer Nix, he was the one who wrote this script, and it was a family drama and beautifully nuanced. The characters and eventually the performance was beautifully nuanced. Also, Amna Sheikh, Gauhar Rashid, Mohib
Yeah.
Mirza. The score was written, it was an original score by Usman Riaz. I think he was 19 years old at the time. We had found him literally through the internet, through his music. He composed a musical score. So the talent भरी पड़ी थी उसमें. लेकिन बहुत सारे जो सिनेमा के ओनर्स थे एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स, और उस वक्त तो खैर बहुत सारे तो नहीं थे, there was only few of them. But the majority of the sort of like feeling amongst them, or feedback I would get is that ये commercial नहीं है, ये बहुत they didn't use the word independent. So it's interesting to me how I've heard the terms, the binaries of the term. Some people call it commercial, some people say mainstream, some people say like our work independent है, art film है. अब मैं अगर art film की बात करूंगी, मैं कहूंगी यार Jean-Luc Godard is like art film, or something that's a bit more abstract and has a bit like the tonality of that is different. Seedlings was a very accessible film. If you watch it, you don't need to be, it's not, I don't think it's very highbrow, but then these terms are very subjective also. So, but coming back to the point, I would tell them, okay, yeah, I think if the audiences watch it, they will like it. So often the issues that we found is, and this is in every industry, not only film industry in Pakistan, and this is in every film and television industry all over the world, that you have all these artists who have these visions, but then you have much fewer people who are in charge of commissioning, programming, studios ho, unki monopolies ho, production houses ho. There are much fewer of those.
Hmm.
So the multitude of stories that people have to tell have to get filtered to, I would say, the taste of very few people who have the commissioning power or the financing power. Yes, I would say the work that I do tends to veer, or the work that I enjoy, the stories that I enjoy, the stories that I think about that roam around in my head, that live inside my head and I can't get them out. Those are of an independent nature if I'm to talk about them in colloquial terms. But I was going to say also, when you have challenges like censorship, or let's say geopolitical issues that we can't get our stories to be commissioned by Netflix or Amazon right now because of a huge geopolitical issue, or back in 2012 एक ban हुआ था YouTube पे,
Hmm.
which was hugely detrimental to Pakistani artists because that's how we would advertise our work. Trailer लगाना है तो we don't have the money to put it on television. That's a lot of money. We'll put it on YouTube, and how we advertise things now, right? Social media. These types of challenges caused huge the cross ban of working with Indian artists and distributing our work over there and vice versa. These were huge structural things that artists have, especially independent artists, because if you're not finding a place in mainstream Pakistani television to tell your stories, then you have to go to streaming, you have to go to collaborations with other independent artists abroad, etc. And I've been a part of many of those projects, luckily, but they haven't been sustainable as a business model because let's say there's so many different reasons. then as an artist, you're compelled to push yourself and find more creativity in yourself, not only for the work that you're doing, but to find ways to distribute it. And so, yes, there's challenges. Yes, independent artists suffered. Yes, since 2012, when we released our first film, the trajectory was like this. And then it's been like, kind of like that. And I say this, and I can give you numbers. For example, after Seedlings, I would look at the numbers from the cinema. I'm forgetting what the board is that reports on how many cinemas were being built or they were in development. It was a great number. But then when the ban happened, like the India ban happened, एकदम से बहुत सारी development पे stay orders लगे because a lot of our industry was running on Bollywood films also. तो एकदम से जो हमारी trajectory थी कि यार अभी तो इतने सिनेमाज ही नहीं है कि हम we can make enough money to pay back make enough revenue to pay back the investment on a film. Suddenly it's like great, the growth on cinemas is looking good, and then something happens that all shuts down and you're like, what do you do? So suddenly film is not such a viable option, and you're thinking, okay, television, okay, streaming. Now they all also have their own challenges, but point being is that I don't know if you want to call it the silver lining or just the reality of it. You're compelled to be more creative to get your stories then out there. And so there is some form of like, not benefit, because I want to give the challenges its due sort of seriousness also, that the challenges should be what we could have so many more diversity of stories,
Yeah.
and the world is so diverse. Why should we just have three different types of storylines that people say कि नहीं यार यही television पे चलता है? I don't think so, because we
Yeah.
we we had the same experience with my film 2012 when they said कि नहीं सिर्फ यही फिल्में चलेंगी, ये वाली फिल्में नहीं चलेंगी. जब film आई, we won 5 awards internationally. The people who came to see it in Pakistan loved it. It played on television then, and I think even like PIA bought the rights, and it had a good life for it.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I don't think it's that audiences don't want to watch it. I think it's a way to convince the people who are sort of in a position of authority to, and then yourself to find creative, independent ways to release it. And then, of course, you have to tweak your stories along the way and things to make it more palatable. But that's all part of an artist's challenge.
You're right.
The tagline that you just read of Bodhi works, film and theater as provocation. That's an artist's job. We want to provoke, and provoke doesn't mean something necessarily antagonistic, but it means push the status quo, push explore differently. That's what drives us in the first place. So the purity of that drive, for it to be reflected on screen and be an excellent piece or a very good piece of art, you need that drive. Now, when a television exec tells me, Meher, this is why these types of films work, and I had one of them tell me, because there's a lot of women in Pakistan who go through a lot of domestic violence challenges at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
That's true. You can pick
Of
up any
course.
study and see that. And so they like to see their reality reflected on television for validation. He termed it in different ways, but that's what he meant. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like, oh no, I just think that you're being like, old fashioned and stuff. That sounds like a very valid point. And so I'm keeping that in my mind. But my argument still is that, okay, I'm just talking about myself now. If there's like 90% of the market in television, they're making those types of stories and different versions of them. I'm not saying they're all the same or homogenous, but appealing to that demographic. I still say there's 10% where we can do other different things. And let's say for myself, if I'm to pitch myself as a writer or director of Pakistani television, I mean, acting is as a separate skill set, which I love and I'll continue to do. I probably wouldn't write and direct those stories that are already being told quite well, by other people. I'll do stuff that I'm better at. And I said this once, I remember a while back. Um, I had been approached by actually the producer of my drama, Nadeem Beg Bhai, and Vase Chaudhary, who was the writer at the time, for the first Jawani Phir Nahi Aani film, जो वो प्रोड्यूस करने जा रहे थे. This was Jawani Phir Nahi Aani one. Um, and to produce it. And I had just done Seedlings, and I guess based on the success of Seedlings as a producer, they had said, we're doing this. And I remember them narrating me the story. हम बैठे हुए थे यहाँ at a coffee shop close to my house, and Vase Chaudhary kind of read me parts of the script, and I was laughing. Now, would I be able to write and direct that myself? Probably not, because that's not my world and those are not the stories that live in my head. But can I produce it if I take off my creative directing, um,
Hat.
writing hat off? Not to say that producing is not creative. Producing can be a really creative skill set also. But if I was to put on just my producing hat, which is what they were asking me to do, I could see right then this is going to be a hit because script is funny. It has all of those elements that make it, more mainstream.
I also want to interject and ask you a little bit. So where's the middle ground in all this? Because I know that if this is the system and this is how things are operating from a commercialized lens, then you just have to take a stand for yourself and then have to start producing content that maybe others are not. And you're maybe one of the very few people who is an actress, a producer, a director. So that gives you that leverage and that liberty to be able to do that. But I don't think many people have that kind of a
Mhm,
privileged skill set, I would say, in other words,
mhm,
to be able to pull off something like that. So I think many actors, if you think about actors who are part of Pakistan's entertainment industry, who are not producers, who are
mhm,
reliant on these big channels to kind of like just get work. So they would really be tongue-tied. They won't have much of a say in anything, in any of the decision making that they would want. Okay, I've also seen many actors who say this scene should not be portrayed as such on screen because I shouldn't be hitting the woman, I shouldn't be doing this to this particular individual, but then again they have to do it because they're actors.
mhm.
So what is your brief take on this?
Well, you spoke about a lot of things. On which exactly? Not being able to give feedback as an actor or producing
I think
projects.
from the aspect of production, in terms of you have to take a stand for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to take a stand for yourself, you have to produce on your own, because if this is the kind of commercialized system that we're a part of, then how do we break free from it? Then that means we have to become our own, we have to become producers on our own, and we have to take the initiative ourselves. How does that
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, I will say when we made Seedlings, us waqt we, like I said, I wanted to direct and I wanted to act, but when I would go to, और उस वक्त इतनी फिल्में बन नहीं रही थी, but when I would want to, यार, how am I going to be a director? I have not been to film school. I'm going to be an assistant director on other projects. We'd go to other projects and no one was kind of willing to take us or me because I was a nobody then. And so literally out of sheer need, it was कि, you know what? हमें कोई नहीं chance दे रहा है और हमारी and no one seems to believe that anything outside of these things will work. So we're going to have to do it ourselves. Easier said than done. We struggled a lot, a lot. Those were some of the most, I think I became a hermit in those years. I didn't like really meet, friends for it took everything out of me and all of the things that let's say, I took my business background and my business background, I didn't have much experience, but I had my degree. I had, I had worked in business at a very good social investment firm before that. So I had, very smart, intelligent people that I had learned from. I had seen how I used to work for a social investment firm that called Acumen Fund, and it was in the low income housing portfolio. But it used to be like goods and services to let's say in health, water, housing, education, but it was essentially social entrepreneurs who would come and pitch for funding. So I would see that whole process, and here I was trying to be an entrepreneur, starting my film production company, pitching to investors for investment for this film. So I kind of like just used everything that I had in my power um to make a film. It was not easy. It was not easy at all. And then when we came to it got selected for these film festivals, and then we won those first two awards in New York. It was like for the first time, it was like for all of those thousands of people who said no and this is not going to work, and there were. Thank God we persevered because this is one, and then the news spread in Pakistan. It was covered in all the newspapers. Then it won it premiered at many other festivals, but it won five more. It won five awards in total. In Pakistan, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting had picked up the film to represent Pakistan at the SARC Film Festival, where we won two more awards. It won the Best Feature Film, the Silver Award, and Amna Sheikh won Best Lead Actress again. So it was a huge sort of like validation for us कि यार जो हम कहे जा रहे थे कि नहीं यार वो a film like this will work. There's no such thing as it won't work unless you're really making something very esoteric and very inaccessible or something like that. Then it's just about smartly saying, "Ki, okay, so our market is not going to be the market for something like a Maula Jat or a Jawani Phir Nahi Aani Hai. It's a smaller film. There's not all of those shashki. It has different merits. It has very nuanced acting. It has a beautiful score. Talent bhara pada hai. It doesn't have the production, budget and that of like, a sci-fi film or, so then you right size it for the market and you have to be very strategic about it and and you learn along the way. So it was not easy at all, but we did it because we were not getting the chance to make the type of stuff that we wanted to make, or make anything at all actually, because we were nobodies then. Now coming to your second half of your question about what about actors and can they produce their own work? I do say it's not easy. Again, like there's nothing has been easy about the work that I've produced in Pakistan, I would say. But a lot of actors are getting into producing. If you look at Hollywood, I tell this to a lot of my female friends who are big actors in Pakistan. Ki, yeah, you have the clout. The one great thing about, I mean, there's many great things about our industry. One of them is that you have it opens a lot of doors. So for my actress friends who complain often that they don't see good female roles on television, yeah, it's the same thing over and over. I'm like, go and produce something. And it doesn't mean to say that they're like, okay, but I don't have a background in business or I don't have, there's different ways that you can approach producing. You can
Yeah.
hire somebody and you're the conduit between getting the financing, and then you've hired somebody to take care of the production because you're not gonna, or you can be more hands-on. Let's take an example in Hollywood, Margot Robbie, for example. Margot Robbie produced Barbie, right? And she also acted in Barbie. She has been very, very active in commissioning and producing films where she gets to play these amazing female characters with so much breadth and so much range. And I read or heard in an interview, she said it herself, that she's very, very hands-on versus some producers. um I don't know how they operate, but I know that, for example, Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon, these are also amazing, very, very well-known female actors who have made a lot of their, money in mainstream Hollywood films and done a lot of indie work also. But for them to get their next interesting role that has a very interesting female character, a lot of them have then produced a lot of the projects and they're going into that. So again, easier said than done. It's not कि यार हम ये करना चाह रहे हैं, कोई roles नहीं तो चलो हम produce करने जाते हैं. It's not as easy as that. It's hard work, very hard work, but that is an avenue. If you and then there's some people I know, some great actors who complain about, not great roles being out there. And when I, suggest this, they're like, yeah, that's just not my skill set. I'm purely just an actor, which is fair enough also. And so everybody has to find their own way. I will say, like, focus on the talents that you have. Um, and you'll find your route to doing it. So Tuba Siddiqui, why am I
Tuba Siddiqui,
blanking?
yeah. I interviewed her
Yes.
for my show as well. She's also
Oh,
producing.
yeah, she's a wonderful actor, and I think she just produced. She was a producer on Lali, right?
Yes.
Sarma Hit
Yes.
Film. She did not act in that, but she's producing, so she's doing something different. Maybe she's always wanted to make good stories, and they don't have to be contingent on the fact that she's acting in them. And there you go. Now she's just produced a film that has premiered at the Berlin Film Festival, which is huge and gotten really good accolades. So where there's a will, there's a way. But definitely to be more efficient and strategic about it, capitalize on your talents and your interest, because the interest is what's going to see that passion through when you're like crying and like struggling. That passion is going to give you that stamina, but your talent is definitely going to be accelerate the efficiency with which you can, like, see your final like, don't go for something completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
uh yeah.
I also strongly believe that you guys are the change makers, especially the actresses who are taking lead in kind of like producing content that they feel is steering away from mainstream content. So like you're taking the lead, Tuba Siddiqui is taking the lead. Maybe there's so many other actors who are doing work, but they're not being noticed, you know? So I think it's also and it's even more empowering when it's coming from women who are telling these stories and also taking ownership of these stories. I also wanted to highlight this here because I was, going through your response and whatever you were saying, and I also feel like the middle ground can also be for producers and content creators in terms of the kind of commercial content that they're creating or independent content that they're creating for cinema and TV or even the web nowadays, is that they can include certain commercialized aspects while also keeping the story meaningful and true to what it is. So you can have it both ways. It's not like either or. Is that correct?
I think so. I think because I've heard this as a barrier to entry since I was, when I made Seedlings, I think I was about, when I started making Seedlings, I was about 25, 26. And of course, I heard 99% no's and 99% ये नहीं चल सकता, 99% वही terminology. I'm not here to give a philosophy class or social studies class or bore my audience. I have to make it entertaining. That is my number one job as a director, or any creative person, and accessible. And so, yes, to answer your question, I do think it's, if I'm to talk about the projects that I direct or produce, 100%, I would say, besides all of the stuff that I want to do creatively, thematically, intellectually with it,
It
I have to
has to
entertain my
be
audience.
it has to be
If I'm going to
entertaining.
entertain my audience, if I'm not having kick-ass cast whose talent is like entertaining to watch, if I'm not doing the production design in a way that's engaging, if I'm not doing the music in a way that's like keeping them like, hooked or stirring up emotions in them. No, I want to hit them with emotions. I want to hit them with entertainment. I want to hit them with laughter. So my play that was an anti-war play that people thought, like when I was pitching it for sponsorship and investment, that they were like, "Hey, ye to bahut hi dark." No, yeah, it's a satire. I want people to be laughing throughout, but you're laughing so much that it almost opens up this accessibility. When an audience is laughing, they're so much more open. I feel like the message that you're trying to get almost hits even stronger. You can look at any great satire, like for example, Don't Look Up, if you've seen that
Yeah.
that film, or any Adam McKay film. He's talking about serious things in the world, but that satire is so brilliant. So of
Yeah.
course, that's where the craft comes in. You can't write good satire, you can't do good satire, and say you have to be good at it. So
Yeah.
that's what I challenge myself to do.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many metaphors that you can use to depict real life challenges. And it's done in such an artistic way that you can communicate different stories, but even horror is used as a metaphor sometimes to convey very complex human emotions. So I think it's just about being creative, but then again, those creative ideas die out when you're part of this system that is so reliant on monotonous storylines. So I would like to segue a little bit into acting, um, because Meri Zindagi Hai Tu was also a commercial play.
Mhm.
It generated a lot of hype, a lot of commercial success, and um, but quite frankly, it was a pretty mundane story. It wasn't something that was out of the blue. Um, as an actress, now I would like to talk to you about. Now, if you take off your producer's hat and if you put on your actor's hat, what do you think was so compelling about this project that you decided to give this a shot? And number two, as an actor, do you feel helpless being part of such projects that are very commercial?
What drew me to the project was its amazing cast.
Hmm.
Uh, I had not seen Musaddiq as a director. I had not seen his work before, but I looked it up, of course. So when I heard reviews about Noor Jahan's previous project, and I just saw the kind of like, I had not met him then. I mean, I met him obviously later on in early meetings when they were casting. The type of way that he was shooting stuff, the visuals, I mean, were very different and fresh and young. And the cast, when Hania, Aamir, Bilal, Abbas, Ali Khan, Javeria Abbasi, I did not know Atabik, the guy who plays my brother, the actor who plays my brother then, but wonderful actors. We met in a sort of pre-production meeting. I didn't have too many scenes with Varda or or the actress who plays Fariha, or the actor who plays Naveen in the project. But what wonderful actors! What wonderful! So it was the cast. It was, frankly speaking, it was the cast that got to me, and what I had been told about Musaddiq's work, since I hadn't seen that work. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why the project is so big. There's such a talent powerhouse that's over there. And I'll always say this. I've said this since Seedlings time. उस वक्त Seedlings में different challenges थे. Production value, छोटी थी because ₹3 की budget थी हमारे पास to make a film. We had, जोड़ तोड़ के हमने जो भी budget वो किया था. लेकिन talent भरा पड़ा था. Amna Sheikh, what an incredible actor.
Yeah.
Amna Mohib, they were like veterans in the TV. Veterans, I mean, they were not that old at the time, but they'd done a lot of like television work that had been very popular. But when you watch them, you're like, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
Wow. God was his first screen role. He had been doing theater. What a talented guy. Usman Riaz, music, come on, man. So talent, acting talent, music talent. I think even in our project, like Asam Azhar ka Gana, I mean, it speaks for itself. I don't even have to say it's a worldwide phenomenon. That's amazing. Meri Zindagi Hai Tu, his remake of it. I think Musaddiq and Nadeem Bhai were very heavily involved in the remake of this song for the OST of this drama. So there is when a producer's creativity and a director's creativity beyond, just directing the script and stuff come also, like bringing the whole world of it, this audio visual world of it. So I think what a privilege to act with such great talent. As an actor, at the end of the day, you can't sit around and like, you can't jeopardize a production, obviously. You're hired there to act. You've been given the script before.
Mm.
Unfortunately, a lot of scripts in Pakistan or a lot of projects in Pakistan, I've heard they don't get the full scripts. And so that's bad practice, I think, for everybody involved. It's just not efficient. The inefficiency of such things gets to me. For example, okay, if you're discussing a story, discuss the story in pre-production so that all the issues can come out. And every
Yeah.
actor, especially with a series, it's nearly impossible that the writer, director, writer maybe, I never met the writer, but the director or the producer know every single little query you might have in your head, because there's so many actors and there's so many episodes and there's so many plot lines and things going on. And it happens in theater also. It's happened in a lot of, I was in Churails, for example. I was one of many Churails. When I had an issue with or not an issue, many questions, I did take that time from the director then to say, like, can we discuss it? And he said, yeah, okay, because he's also thinking of so much, right? There's so much breadth. It's impossible that he can think of he has sorted out every single issue. So that's why pre-production is so important, that actors read their script. If there's any now there's two issues. There's two issues that could possibly happen. One is that I don't like what my character is doing. I disagree. Now that's just, if you signed up to do that part, then that's your commitment to the part. The second is I've signed up for this character and the thing, but there's some things that are inconsistent with the character. Like you told me this character key characteristics is XYZ. But
Mm.
in this episode, they're doing this, which is not in keeping with that. It doesn't go in the internal logic of the character. And that's where I say, because I'm a director also, and this happened when I did the White Plague, this play, because it had a huge cast. If you have cast your actors because you see something in them besides their acting ability, and their acting ability probably comes from some form of intelligence, creative intelligence,
Mm.
intellectual, whatever, mine those brains. You have the privilege of working with such, there's some brilliant minds in the room also. So
Mm.
as a director, I remember if actors would come and say, Meher, this is not, I don't think this character, my character would do this, or I'd given that I have the time, and hopefully you may carve that time in pre-production, I will sit and I will listen to them. And I'd be so stupid not to mine gems of input from these wonderful, brilliant people that I have cast. And of course, there's some times where I said no, to whatever XYZ character after we've discussed it. Okay, no, the reason why he's doing that is because of that. And yeah, so they'll understand. Or at the end of the day, we make an agreement, because also time is then, you have limited time. You can't always like discuss things in perpetuity. And you come to that sort of compromise. But
Yeah. So there needs to
even
be that dialogue with the whole team,
100%.
because in the end
A
it's a
director,
collaborative exercise. It's not something that you are doing
look
in
at the
isolation,
term. Look
you
at the
know.
term. Director is directing. So they're taking all
Yeah.
this channel and all this talent and all this work that's been put in, and they have to direct it in a way that meets their vision
Yeah.
and brings out the best acting in them.
Now you can tell me about this as an actor as well. Social media following. I've heard this as well, that people with large social media following, no matter, and I'm gonna get into the merits of casting and the
Yeah.
issues of merits of casting. So basically, I've also heard from many production companies or people who are leading these productions that actors are cast based on their social media following, not per se by their acting talent. How
Mhm.
truthful is that statement in the context of Pakistan?
In the context of the world, I think it's more and more you're seeing in advertising and et cetera, people are taking, for example, back in the 90s, there was like the models, supermodels, Cindy Crawford, Falana Falana, Naomi Campbell, et cetera, selling products to women. hired for ads. But then when followings of female celebrities became so much, suddenly or celebrities, actors who had a bigger following started replacing those people because you're going to have more reach in advertising your product. So same with, I would say, film and television. Fortunately, unfortunately, there are merit pros and cons, definitely. I mean, if someone doesn't have acting talent in their cast just because they have, X million followers, and you can see that it's bad acting, I mean, kya hi kahenge uska? And it's working because of that, then maybe that's just a reality. But there's a lot of very, very, very talented actors who have huge followings. For sure, I can see, like, at the end of the day, what are the producers selling? They're selling their drama or their film, and they want as many audiences coming to watch that. And so if you have somebody who already has such a big, audience base, then that's just how marketing and advertising and commercialization works. Now, Hania, I can talk from personal experience. I played her sister in this drama.
Yeah.
She, I think, is probably the biggest following in Pakistan out of celebrities, not only female. I think she has the biggest following. She's a really talented actor, and she's a very what's the word for it? Versatile actor and personality, and she can do a lot of different things. And so no wonder she has, but she's a natural influencer in the social media sense because it's a medium that you can see she's very active. I would always tell her, I'm like, oh my God, honey, I should post more, and I'm so bad with posting, so bad with it. And she'd be like, yeah, you do. Like, you have to do it. It's like and I'm like, I know. She's the drama's coming out, Meher. This is the time to, like, put up those pictures. I have so many BTS
Yeah.
pictures. I have so many wonderful, fun moments with Bilal, Hania, the rest of the cast. And I'm just like a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to doing it. It's not, I have ADHD and I have she's very quick at doing it. So there's many factors why Hania puts out a lot of content. She puts out very entertaining content. She is talented. She has a huge demographic. Um, but that's Hania, and that's people who are like, have the talent also to back it up. If you're talking about people who don't have the talent to back it up, they're just like pretty faces, and they just maybe are they going to be cast in long form content? फिर वो पता ही चलेगा. Then bad acting, you can't really hide bad acting. I don't know if you have specific examples, you can tell me, but having a large social media following and being cast because of it sounds a bit sketchy. I'm sure that there's some element of talent also that's being that they're being cast because
Considered.
of,
Yeah.
and maybe not, maybe they're just very charming and entertaining in their short form videos, and they're not that good actors, or they're just very, good looking. तो फिर वो वाले फिर पता ही चल जाते हैं कि यार that actor's not so great, that actor's very stiff, or that actor is very, people might still go watch it because the fans on social media just want to buy tickets to watch XYZ actor because they just enjoy them. But
Meher,
then
one thing that I actually disagree with you on is the fact that, this is, I think, a drawback of our industry in terms of casting. We don't have auditions. We don't have a process of auditioning talent. Here in the US, every play that you go to, you have an audition. Even established actors have to audition for parts. ये पाकिस्तान के अंदर ही ऐसी मैल प्रैक्टिस है जो कि हमने नॉर्मलाइज कर दी है, जिसकी वजह से आई डोंट थिंक न्यू टैलेंट इज गेटिंग अ फुट इन द डोर. आई थिंक द फुट इन द डोर पीपल आर गेटिंग अ फुट इन द डोर because they are very well connected and they have a strong name that's backing them. There's nepotism all over the place. आप बुशरा अंसारी की पूरी फैमिली को ही ले लें. So it's really a sad thing actually to see that people have also kind of like just taken over certain spots and are not letting talent replace it. So I think that's really not how the industry should be functioning, and I think I would slightly disagree with that. But moving
well,
on. Hmm.
if I can just say something about that, because you mentioned social media following. Nepotism is different. Social media following is like I'm on screen and I for whatever it is that I'm doing, whatever content that I'm making, I have a big following. That's very different than nepotism.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
think the merits of casting, merits of
yes.
casting के
So
अंदर
I
nepotism
will
भी आ
say,
जाता है.
I've been this film, the wonderful film that I acted in, The Queen of My Dreams.
Mhm.
I was also the casting director in Pakistan. I do auditions. I take that audition process very seriously. As a director, when I directed The White Plague, there were some actors who I've worked with long enough that I know I'm going to cast them in this, but there was a big cast. I held auditions. I
Hmm.
do auditions. I appreciate when auditions are done. I've auditioned myself so much. I did, even though I was the casting director of all the Pakistani cast in The Queen of My Dreams, I auditioned for Fawzia Mirza. I gave a self-tape and
Hmm.
I worked hard on that. Um, Nepotism, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I will agree with you in the sense, and not only nepotism, but like you said, well connected. Yeah, people schmoozing a lot in certain circles, and then so they get cast in like, yeah, yeah, of course, a lot of great talent gets left out because of that. That I will agree with you.
Mhm.
Not to say that all actors who have come from well-connected families are bad actors. No, some are very, very good, and some are quite bad. And I mean, I'm not going to name them. And then you're just like, chalo yaar, okay, wo hain to hai. Ab kya kare? I will agree then in that way that there is a lot of great talent that
The
doesn't
light
get
of the
to.
day. Yeah, they don't see the
Well,
light of the day.
they don't see the light of mainstream projects. That they're probably still doing theater or something. Or a lot of great theater actors I've seen. They haven't been able to make a living, and so they've gone into different fields. So of course
Yeah.
that is a sad reality, and that should change. And I would echo your sentiment. Ke auditions honi chahiye, and we should cast talented people
Yeah.
because that will only do the project the best.
Yeah. Meher, to conclude, what new projects are you working on?
So that there's a few stories that let's see. I really want to continue acting. I love acting. It has to be the right fit, the right team, the right story, mainly the right story, the right character. The last project I did before Meri Zindagi Hai Tu was Jackson Heights. The last project for television.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I know that a lot of work in the middle. So I do, and Churails, which was not television, but it was
Yeah.
serialized.
Web
So I
series.
did,
Yeah.
yeah, what great directors, what great actors. So I've been a bit spoiled with like working with, amazing. I hope something like that is what I'm looking forward to. I do have a bit, so definitely look forward to like more of screen acting of television projects, inshallah. And I do have at the back of my mind this insane, again, think of Sisyphus pushing his damn rock up that mountain. This like thing, this idea that's been rattling around in my head that I want to write for. I wanted to write it originally for streaming platform, but because streaming is not really an avenue right now for film, sorry, for television, which I've never done. I've never produced or directed or written for television, and that's a skill set that like the people who write long form content is hats off to them. It's not an easy thing at all. So I can't talk about it too much right now because it's in development. I'm like researching in the beginning stages of writing it. Maybe inshallah in a few years you'll see that too. But for right now, I hope to continue acting on television, acting in theater, and then directing a few projects soon too.
Very lastly, in one sentence, if you can summarize, who has been in your life, who has had your back through thick and thin?
My Napa colleagues. I mean, should I take names?
You can if you want.
They're actors who I have acted with, worked with, been directed from, directed them. We found each other early on in our careers, I guess, when I was doing plays at Napa. So there's Sunil Shankar, wonderful, wonderful artist. He studied at Napa. Fawad Khan, who plays my husband Ishtiyaq in Meri Zindagi Hai Tu. Bakhtavar Mazhar. Jashinder Chaggar. These are we have a group on WhatsApp right now because a lot of them have moved away also, unfortunately. Yeah, I think any project where we have a problem, an issue, or we want creative feedback, yeah, मैंने ये script लिखी है, can you read it? Can you give me feedback? When I was, developing my play for years on Zoom during COVID, I had them come on, Zoom to do readings. Yeah, creatively, support-wise, sharing griefs, challenges, laughter, creative inspiration, passion. They're a great group that have had my back.
Mhm. Meher, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for being part of my show. That is all for now. Stay tuned for more on my official YouTube channel and Facebook page. Until then, take care. Allah Hafiz.